This is Ecotricity's ecoTEC roundup show from Aotearoa's first and only climate-positive certified renewable electricity provider. We only source from wind, hydro and solar, and we are the leading supplier of electricity to EVs in Aotearoa. Switch today at ecotricity.co.nz. Welcome back to another roundup of news from the world of clean cars and green energy. Thanks for joining me. We start today's show with a little roundup from quarterly earnings reported by various automakers in the segment. And as usual, figures are quoted in US dollars because that's what most of these companies do. And to put a Kiwi dollar conversion, it's going to change every day. Sorry. Tesla held its earning call midweek, at which it recorded quarterly revenue of $25.5 billion, 3.07% higher than the $24.74 billion Wall Street was expecting. However, while it beat on revenue, it missed its earnings per share, reporting an adjusted EPS of 52 cents versus the 62 cents expected. One half of Tesla's profits last quarter came from the sale of regulatory credits to other automakers who are not yet meeting their EV targets. Meanwhile, Ford also posted its earnings this week, leading to its worst daily decline since 2008. While Ford reported a 6% increase in revenue to $47.8 billion, better than Wall Street had hoped, it fell dramatically short on its earnings, with an adjusted EPS of 47 cents per share versus the 64 cents expected. Much of Ford's poor performance was down to increased pressure in the market, with EVs especially experiencing increased losses due to the current EV price war. While Ford is still predicting an overall profitable year, it predicts its Model E EV division will lose up to $5.5 billion over the course of the year. GM also posted its quarterlies this week, beating Wall Street expectations for both revenue and earnings. Its revenue of $47.97 billion was significantly higher than the $45.46 expected, and its earnings per share rose to $3.06 versus the $2.75 expected. Despite this, however, GM did report significant losses in its electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle and Chinese market segments. Despite this, GM says it hopes its EVs will be profitable on a production or contribution margin basis by the fourth quarter of this year. Also reporting this week was Stellantis, which suffered a pretty terrible quarter, reporting a first-half revenue of $92.1 billion, down 14% on the same period last year. It warned that poor sales in North America have made significant impacts to its overall profitability. It ended the first half of the year with a net profit of $6.07 billion, down 48% on the first half of last year. We'll be covering more earnings reports in the coming weeks, so let us know if you like how we're reporting them. Official EPA ranges have been published for Porsche's refreshed 2025 model year Taycan family of EVs, and thanks to some significant tweaks underneath, it's an impressive improvement. Porsche's Performance Battery Plus, the largest battery you can opt for with the Taycan, is up from 83.4 kilowatt-hours usable in last year's model to 97 kilowatt-hours usable for this year. The most efficient variant, the entry-level Taycan with 19-inch wheels and rear-wheel drive, can now manage 318 miles, 511 kilometers per charge from that battery, while even the Turbo S variants of both the Taycan and Taycan Cross Turismo get a welcome boost of around 20% more range compared to last year's models. We've made no secrets about the fact that we love the Kia EV6 GT, and we think it's one of the best performance EVs on sale for its money today. But thanks to its sibling, the IONIQ5 N from Hyundai, it's about to get even better. That's according to reporting from the Korean car blog, which claims that the updated Kia EV6 GT, due later this year, will feature some of the same performance features found in the recently launched Hyundai IONIQ5 N. Both cars occupy the halo position in their respective lineups, and given that they're based on the same eGMP platform, the refreshed Kia EV6 GT will gain many of the features debuted on the IONIQ5 N, including a longer-range battery pack, refreshed interior and infotainment, and a virtual gear shift for petrolheads who miss manual transmissions. 2024 was, according to many, the year we would see autonomous vehicles become mainstream, shuttling us from place to place in major cities around the world. But just as some of its rivals have discovered that autonomous driving isn't as easy as it looks, GM's autonomous division Cruise has confirmed that the Cruise Origin Robotaxi has now officially been cancelled, to be replaced instead at some point in the future by a fleet made up of next-generation autonomous Chevrolet Bolt EVs. The pod-like design of the Cruise Origin first debuted 4 years ago, but production woes, combined with hemorrhaging of cash at Cruise as it dealt with accident after accident, sealed the fate of its autonomous pods. It hopes the future Bolt EV-based vehicles will be far cheaper to build. Rivian CEO RJ Scarage opened up in an interview to The Verge this week on why he feels Volkswagen's recent investment and partnership with Rivian will succeed where Ford and Mercedes-Benz previous partnerships failed. Talking candidly about the 2 prior failed partnerships, he explained that Rivian's onboard vehicle architecture, which is unlike the system used by most legacy automakers, was always the biggest sticking point in vehicle partnerships. While Rivian's system, like Tesla's, represents massive savings over traditional automotive CAN-based systems, it presented too much of a challenge for legacy automakers wanting to keep their systems in use. But Volkswagen, as he explained, came to Rivian explicitly because it wants to develop next-generation in-vehicle networks, something Rivian, like Tesla, is experienced in. Aptera published its official July update video this week, and as expected, it's confirmed that it will not be using in-wheel motors on its launch edition of the Aptera solar electric car. When the vehicle was first unveiled in its refreshed form, Aptera stated that it would make use of in-wheel motors from European specialist Elaphe, and all of its prototypes to date have used in-wheel motors. But as Aptera co-founder Steve Fambro explained in the video, the startup has opted to switch to a more traditional 150 kilowatts peak, 50 kilowatts continuous inboard motor from Vitesco's Technologies for its launch edition vehicles. This will make all launch editions front-wheel drive, with Steve Fambro promising an all-wheel drive variant still planned for the future. While Aptera says it's open to in-wheel motors for the future and it will be able to accelerate production plans with the new inboard motor, it's honestly not looking good for a vehicle that was supposedly near to production. The latest report from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in the US, or FERC for short, shows that solar and wind power combined now makes up more than 20% of the US's total grid generation capacity. In its latest update, FERC shows that during the first 5 months of this year, 10,669 megawatts of solar, 2,095 megawatts of wind, 212 megawatts of hydropower, and 3 megawatts of biomass generation was added to the US electrical grid. In fact, of all of the new generation capacity added to the US grid this year, just over 94% came from renewables. Renewables are expected to hit 36% of the US grid mix in the next few years. Before we get to the last 2 stories, I have a quick question. Are you in the market for a new car? Because if you are, and you live in Aotearoa, you should totally check out our very own buyer's guide at ecotricity.co.nz. It's packed with all the information you need to pick a car that's right for you and covers everything from details about available vehicles, daily life with an EV, how to deal with charging, and so much more. So follow the link below and start that journey today. Rivian CEO RJ Scaringe has been pretty busy this week giving interviews, and we're learning more and more about what we can expect from Rivian moving forwards. The first bit of news comes from the announcement that the Rivian R2 pre-order book now sits at well above 100,000 hand raisers, suggesting that if Rivian can convert those to confirmed orders, the R2 is going to be quite the popular vehicle and, given it's nearly one half the price of the R1S, it should be. The second piece of news comes from the confirmation that Rivian intends to bring the R3X, the performance-oriented hot hatch-esque R3, to market as quickly as possible, with the R3X expected to launch before the R3. The reasons for this are pretty obvious. The R3X will be pricier, more performance-oriented, and if it delivers on promises, it will be pretty darned good. And finally, nobody likes breakdowns, and for those looking from outside into the EV world, there's a common misconception that the reason you see EVs on the back of tow trucks is because they ran out of charge. That not only fuels myths about range anxiety, but it's patently false. A new study this week from Toronto-based Vertical Scope discovers that EVs aren't stranded all that often, and when they are, it's usually for something other than running out of charge. It surveyed 1,200 EV owners and found that while 9.1% had been stranded at some point by their EV, the overwhelming majority of them weren't out of charge. Instead, those who were left at the side of the road often found it was because of a software or hardware fault with their vehicle, highlighting the gap that legacy automakers often have when it comes to building reliable vehicle software. Tesla and BMW cars were least likely of all EVs to find themselves in a pickle, but General Motors-based EVs, Nissan EV owners and Fisker Ocean EV drivers were most frequently stranded by their cars. And on that note, we're done for the day. Before I go, though, do make sure you've hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest in EV news from this channel. And of course, if you haven't switched yet, why not switch to Aotearoa's first and only climate positive certified renewable electricity provider? It is super easy to make the switch, and in doing so, you'll help the nation wean itself off dirty energy onto clean, green power that will keep the land beautiful for generations to come. I'll be back next week as usual, and in the meantime, do check out other great videos on this channel, including that from the lovely Gavin Kiwi EV Shoebridge. So until next time, I'm Nikki Gordon Bloomfield. Have an amazing rest of the week. Ka kite! See you soon.